What's up, gang? Carlton Flowers here, your crypto pro.
Yay!
And we are going to do a quick follow-up on BTC since the last update video. So let's get rid of my handsome face and jump into the details on the one-day chart. In the last video, I talked about these areas where on the stochastic, we were buried on top and would not come out. And we compared it to the previous two periods where the stochastic was buried and hung out for quite some time. Here was the first one. Pretty long period where we had 1, 2, 3, a 4-humped camel right there. And then we had the second period where it just hit this incline just straight up. We just stayed buried as we went on this massive run. And then we had these individual little humps, and then we had the current time period where the stochastic has just stayed buried up here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 humps. Now we did dip down below twice, but this is generally the same peak period. And what we were pointing out before on the previous video, this was before everyone started to talk about this on YouTube. I was pointing out the fact that we were increasing in price, we were buried on the stochastic, yet we were showing a bearish divergence on the histogram with the MACD. And that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me and started to look like, in fact, we also had kind of a decline right here on volume. So that was like a double bearish divergence of what I was looking at while everyone was screaming about 220K Bitcoin. And at the time, I was wondering, why are we not discussing the bearish divergence? And why are people thinking that we're just not going to have any possibility of a correction? Because this movement was so overdone and we have been buried for such an extended period of time in the stochastic. All right, so since then, of course, we now know and people are starting to admit that we have broken this buried out trend where we were stuck in the 80 plus zone of the stochastic and we have a correction going on. So what is next? Well, let's look at this and talk about it. There's a lot of talk about 42K as a correction point, and that is a significant point of discussion. I can kind of see it. However, I kind of don't, and I'll show you why. Now, overall, we do have this trend on the oscillators with the MACD that hit a peak right here. And now it looks like this crossover is the one that's going to stay, where we might start to trend back down as we follow this histogram that is looking like it's going to take a dive underneath the zero line. We also have a very bearish, sharp declining angle on the stochastic with the 1 day, which says, yes, we're headed downward. We're back into the middle of this support resistance zone that was so important. And we have a phone call, so I have to mute the phone. Sorry about that. And the question remains, will we stay within this support resistance zone? So we're going to have to zoom in and look at this closer to see what it looks like. All right, here we go. And we're changing the range on the visible with the VPVR so we can see what these volume nodes are. Now, the thick of this node is at 46, and we already touched on that. Notice how we touched it, and when we moved up, the general momentum has pulled us to the peak of this node right here. All right, let's put an arrow at the peak of this node. Boom, that's 46. I don't see anything at 42 but this hole. That's why I don't understand why people are saying that 42 is this magical point where we're going to bounce. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't see it. Now, we've got these two other minor support resistance zones here that are below. And let's just clear this out real quick. Scrunch this up and pull these out so we can look at them. We'll bring this out a little bit. And let's bring the lower one out a little bit. If I can grab it, would you please? Let's zoom it out a little bit more. There we go. Now we're moving. How about that? Scrunch this on down and looking at the nodes here on the VPVR to get the clues of where we could have these support points. Now, here's the top of this one, 45.7. It's still really 46. Basically, 46 is still where this bottom touch point is. I just drew these little parallel lines in here just to show on the micro level this little bearish channel that we're bouncing in, and it has obeyed those lines thus far. And this I did just to confirm that we have a reverse in the direction of trading. This is a pivot point where we pivoted right here. There's your pivot, and we start to move downward. All right. Now, the thick of the next node comes down here at 40. Let's see. Let's get the exact point. This big fat one here is 40,000. So what's happening at 42? Where's the volume at 42? 42,000 is a low point. So again, I don't know. I don't understand it. I think it could either bounce here at the bottom of this channel and move back up right here, which is probably the least likely scenario. And then we have the point of control, which is at 37,800. I think that's the most likely scenario based on the chart. Now, keep in mind, this is not financial advice, because at any moment we could have a whale come in and manipulate this market. This chart and these indicators show us the natural balance of buying and selling, and what is likely to happen as people move in waves, as we have waves of sentiment. And when the sentiment changes from bullish to bearish, we have a pivot point, which is up here, and then we start to wave down. It's sentiment. A whale can come in and ruin that. But for right now, the chart tells us that 37.8 is probably going to be the most probable point that we would pivot and maybe break off and start to move up again. Now, the less likely scenario here would be the next 2 points. We have, let's see, turn drawing mode off. This node here is at 35.8. And then we have the lower one at 32.7. That's your least likely scenario. And then the bottom of the barrel would be the 29, but it can happen. But for right now, my game plan is going to be to start accumulating once we get out of this thick of this node here. So I'm going to start buying. We feel this support resistance area here. This is where I start to accumulate my favorite alts. If it goes down, then I'll continue to this point and then maybe stop if it keeps on going down, unless I just see some steals of a deal. And then after that point, we're going to have a bounce. Now, what happens after that? I'll share with you my guess. And again, it's just a guess. You have to make a game plan and roll the dice and just go with it. All right? It's just a guess. It is not a prediction. If you're looking for predictions on YouTube, you're going to lose money. If you're looking for somebody to give you the answers who thinks they have a crystal ball, you're going to get wrecked. You should not be doing that. You should make a game plan and then execute on your plan so you can profit. Here's my game plan. If you scroll way, way back, I had talked about in some of my prior videos from a month or two ago that there was a scenario that I said that I would play, that we would drop down to 29 and I would start buying because it was probably going to move back up. But there was so much talk of the drop to 20K, I thought it was going to do this. I did not buy. I abandoned my plan. I should have started doing the DCA right here in this side banding while everything was quiet, and I did not. So then, of course, as I said in some of those videos, there's a possibility that at 30 we rip and we move up to the next node before we capitulate. And I said that possibility number 1 was up here at 48, which we hit, and possibility 2 was at 58. Well, guess what, kids? It looks like there's a good chance of this happening. I should have listened to myself. So my new game plan is to try that out. So if this can continue on down and we hit here to the near this support resistance at around 37K, this is where I'll be doing the DCA game in this whole area here. I'm just going to say place my bets and hope for the possibility that once we get out of this zone that we do run up to this 58. It might not happen that way. It might not. So I'm going to buy here and then I'm getting out at this point. I'm not waiting. I'm not listening to 220K. I'm not listening to anything after this point. It could go higher than this. If it does, so be it. My goal is to get out of this with money in my pocket because the kids need shoes. I got college tuitions to pay for. All right. So I'll be satisfied to get out here and wait and see what happens. Now watch this. I'm going to get out of this and go to the 1 week chart. You tell me if you don't see this. Here's the 1 week chart. Let's just have a gander here. Zoom this in a little bit. Let's make a point. Let's draw some arrows. So here's the current movement. We might do this. Oops, that is not what I want. I need an arrow. This is the current movement headed down, right? Notice the position of the stochastic on the 1 week chart. It's at a near peak. Look at this. Now, on the 1 week chart, we could do something like this, like bounce out of this and hit that 58K and then end up finishing and peaking the stochastic somewhere in this area where maybe, and this is just guesswork. Again, I'm not making a prediction. My guess is this, that the price that will coincide with this peak will be somewhere coming right out of here. And there we go. All right. That's just a guess, just a guess. But with the stochastic peaking out in this area, holy mackerel. Can you imagine what the possibilities are if we come out of this? Let's just draw a peak in here. Let's say there's a peak right there. And then we have a cycle. What if it cycles all the way down? And it could. Why? Because we did too much over here. Bitcoin, you're just doing too much. You're doing too much. When's the last time we had all of that? Look at these previous peaks. We had a good one here. We had a one hump there. A one hump and then a re-hump right here. But we've been just buried up high. So do you think that we're going to stay up there again right here? It's unlikely. And so I have to guess and say, roll the dice. Again, not a prediction, but my guess would be this, that let's just draw it on out here. We're going to jump down, and we're going to turn around, jump up here to 58, and then we're going to head down. And so look at that node down here. You hear people talking about 19. Here's a node here. There's some people talking 10,000. That's the lowest. I mean, that's not as likely, but it's possible. What if it did do that? Well, there's the point of control right there. And so it doesn't really mean anything terrible. It's not the end of Bitcoin if that happened, because guess what? On that next market cycle, it's going to come out of there with a vengeance. And it's going to destroy everything that it has done before. So it could be very, very fun in the winter, spring of 2022 if that happens. So if this is wrong, I'm going to come out of this with money because I'm going to play this little short movement right here. Whoopsie. Let's just circle it like that. This is my play so I can make some money to get the kids shoes. Now, if we're so lucky to have this big dip, I'm going to be buying everything under the sun when we hit the dog days. And I'm going to come out of that next one. It's going to be time to buy some yachts if we come out of that. I'm telling you what, I'm loading the bags. So that's just a strategy. And once again, it's just guesswork. It's all you can do is just roll the dice, hope for the best, make a plan, stick to your plan, and play it safely. And don't put money into the stuff that you cannot afford to lose. And remember the rule of rules. Never buy into a run. Never, 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 never. The worst times to buy, you never buy it like right here. That's a run. You buy down here when it bombs. You buy here when it's kind of in the chop zone. You do not buy up here into this run. Wait until things settle down. When they settle down, that's when you buy. Well, that's all I've got to say. Post your comments below. Tell me what you think of this strategy scenario. It might not happen that way, but we'll see. And until next time, I am out. Man, what is the deal? This thing is broken. All right, let's try that again. I am out.